Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. As always, I'm joined by Jordan.
You know, if I were a Dothraki, Jared, I would be losing my strength today.
Oh, God. Dominic? What's up, Dom?
Shave it all.
Oh, God. And second, Jordan Boyd. How's it going, Jordan?
It's going good. I'm excited to be here.
Pleasure to have you on the podcast. As our show starts, we always talk about what we've been playing. For me, I haven't been playing too much. I bought Red Dead Redemption on the backwards compatibility sale for the big sale that Xbox is doing from the 5th to the 11th. It was $7.50. What I didn't know at the time when I bought it is it actually came with Undead Nightmare as well. So that was awesome. Yeah, getting Red Dead for $7, you can't beat it. It was a steal. I wasn't even planning on playing it or buying it, but I bought it and I'm playing it now. It looks as good as I remembered it looking, which is cool. Obviously, it doesn't look crazy good, but usually when you think about how a game looked and you go back and play it, it looks worse, like way worse. And it actually looks pretty good. Game's cool. I really hope they announce a follow-up. I played Red Dead Revolver, which a lot of people didn't play. Completely different game than Red Dead. But then I played Red Dead Redemption and loved it, so I want to see the third entry in the series. Yeah, haven't played much else. Smite, Overwatch, the usuals. But Red Dead was the anomaly. And I also watched Green Room per Jordan's recommendation. Rest in peace to Anton Yelchin. He's a good actor. Great movie. I don't want to go too long on it. My only problem is some of the parts in that movie are really cringy. Like when they at the end, Jordan, when they bust in the room and he's standing there and he has that one-liner and then he jumps down into the basement. Yeah, kind of cringy. But overall, very intense movie. Didn't know Patrick Stewart was in it. Super surprising. Yeah. Great actor. Playing a neo-Nazi.
Jared,
which is
would
cool.
you say it's almost like, to me, it felt less like a thriller and more like a horror movie in a way?
It was very much genre agnostic to me. It seemed like it just moved all over the place. I couldn't really nail it down. There were parts where it was action, parts where it was horror, parts where it was suspense, parts where it was thriller, parts where it was comedy. Like when they opened that song, the cover of the what's the name of that song? I can't remember it, but they're basically bashing Nazis. Good movie though. So what have you guys been playing? Jordan, we'll start with you, the OG Jordan.
So, unfortunately, I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way. I was not able to complete Persona 3, and credits were not rolled. I played it a little bit. I played for several hours, and I just couldn't force myself. I was like, you know what? This hair and beard, it's long enough. It's about time to shave anyways. I'll get that done and just not worry about it. I'll finish Persona at some point, obviously, before Persona 5 comes out. That's no big deal. So, yeah, there's that. Next week, we don't have a video podcast, but these guys will be seeing me without beard and hair. So, yeah.
Oh, rejuvenated.
So, moving on to what I actually did play. I think last week I had finished the first 3 episodes of Walking Dead Season 1, and now I'm at that same spot in Walking Dead Season 2. So I finished Season 1. Dom, you talked about the story being a lot better in Season 2, and I would say that's definitely the case. Way more interesting characters. Honestly, to me, Walking Dead Season 1 didn't even get good until, very end of Episode 2, beginning of Episode 3, so...
Can we spoil it? Can I say something?
Yeah, that game's old. If people care, it's whatever.
So the villain, or whatever you might call them, in Season 2 was so much better than that stupid guy at the end of Season 1.
I haven't finished Season 2, though.
Yeah.
I have not either, but I don't mind.
He's only 3 episodes in. Just say, the villain's way better. Just leave it at that.
For Season 2, the villain is really cool and really realistic, and it felt like it was just pulled right out of the show. But in Season 1, the guy that kidnaps Clementine or whatever...
Yeah.
That whole plot line was the most ridiculous shit I've ever seen. It was like, why would you want to kidnap a little girl to take care of in the zombie apocalypse? I'd be getting rid of little girls.
I think it was like pedophile undertones is what I felt.
Yeah, it was.
I think he was just crazy, and he went crazy because he lost his family.
I don't even remember him
someone
though. When I think about Season 1, I think about Clementine and what's his face? Can't even remember his name. Lee. Yeah, Lee Everett. I don't really think about the villain. That was kind of weird that they're just thrown in at the end. So.
Yeah.
Don, were you speaking about Carver just a second ago?
Yeah.
The villain. Yeah. So I've at least encountered him in been involved with him. So yeah, he's definitely a bad dude. A lot of good voice actors. Kumail Nanjiani is in this. Carver is played by Michael Madsen. There's a couple others, and really good voice cast. So I've been playing that. Go ahead.
When you do finish, I'm curious. You'll have to let me know the choice you make at the very end. Obviously, I won't spoil it for you now, but I'll be curious to see what you do compared to what I did.
I will say that I chose to help Sarah pick her blueberries.
Okay.
So,
when you're on the roof and she's getting yelled at.
Yeah, in the roof garden, with one-armed Freddy or whatever his name is. One-armed Jack.
Yeah. I treated that little girl like shit. I was like, you just need to go.
Me too. I was like, bye, Felicia. I was just like, get the hell out of here.
Damn.
I told you I was heartless in this game.
It's one of the few Telltale games I haven't played yet. Like you were saying before, Dominic, the first one, like, everyone told me it was going to be pretty impactful, but it really didn't leave much of an impact on me just because of that weak villain at the end. I really wasn't a big fan of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it carried over. I never played Season 2, but I have played the Game of Thrones one. Tales from the Borderlands was awesome. I'm looking forward to the Batman one. It's going to be cool.
So, besides that, I didn't play a whole lot of other stuff. I played some Vita, played Entwined on Vita, which is the game from either last year's E3 or the year before that was at Sony's conference, and it came out that day. And it's all about these two animals. I don't even remember what they are, but you're guiding them with the two analog sticks and making them fly certain patterns. And it's a short game. The mechanics aren't perfect. I wouldn't say it's anything super special, but since it's short, I'm just kind of enjoying it when I'm watching TV or whatever on the Vita. And besides that, I have been rereading, I should say, the Harry Potter books in anticipation of the screenplay that's coming out in book form it's technically kind of like the 8th book. So, yeah.
Warner Brothers actually claimed rights to that today. The Cursed Child.
Yeah, they filed a trademark for a film version, but that'll probably have to come after this Fantastic Beast trilogy.
Yep.
So,
Dom, what have you been playing?
So I put in about an hour and a half, maybe, into Syndicate.
Yes.
It's really cool. I like the setting a lot. I like it. Like, the characters are really interesting. I just finished those first two intro missions, so I'm just now getting to London. But the first thing I notice is when I start playing is this still controls like shit, really. I mean, and then Jordan mentioned that this is actually controls much better than the last couple entries, because I haven't played in an Assassin's Creed game since Revelations, and I loved all of them up to that point. I tried Black Flag for a little bit, but then I just got really bored of sailing. It got old really fast, so I put that down. But yeah, the setting in Syndicate is much cooler, but it's still not the... I guess I'm spoiled having played so much Dark Souls, where the third-person controls are just on point, but...
Is it that you're doing the thing where, you're jumping off places when you don't want to, or you're trying to go one place, but your character's going another place?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's just... Maybe I just need to get used to it again. I'm sure, as I keep playing, I'll get more acclimated and it'll be a little easier, but there's just one observation.
Back in Revelations, you didn't have the downward parkour, which is huge.
Yeah. Also, I think it's one of those things, if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, as the series goes on, you're a little bit more forgiving on that. Kind of like with Uncharted and the shooting mechanics, everything else about that game you love so much that you're kind of willing to forgive the shoddy parts of the game. So I think with Assassin's Creed, it's just if you love that series, you just kind of put that to the wayside and don't really think about it that much. Yeah,
it's a small negative point.
Yeah.
Overall, I think I'm really gonna like it, but more on that later, because I put the most of my time into Skyward Sword this week, actually.
Oh wow!
Which this is a long game, as far as Zelda games go.
Huh.
I'm close to the end now. I just got the bow and arrow finally. I think I'm just about to get to the second to the last dungeon, I believe, And it's such a shame, too, because I still feel the same way I did when I first talked about it a few weeks ago, that the motion controls completely, ruin this game. Because there is a good Zelda game in there.
Yeah.
Not a great Zelda game by their standards, but, there's still a good game in there that's just... Yeah, the motion controls just ruin it for me. It's my complaint I just had about controlling everything in Assassin's Creed, it's 10 times worse than that. When it does work and you're, sword fighting, it feels great, but it seldom actually works. And then there's a bunch of other like stupid little things you have to do with motion that are just annoying.
Yeah.
So would you rank it like at the bottom of the Zelda list?
So far, yeah. As far as like the mainline 3D Zeldas go.
Okay.
Huh.
Is that everything you played? Is that it?
And actually, also, I played Monument Valley on my phone. Really
Nice.
cool game.
Awesome. Playing in a mobile game.
Yeah, I know.
That wasn't Pokemon Go this week. That's rare. What about you, Jordan B? How's it going this week? What did you play?
So the biggest thing has been Pokemon Go, obviously. I don't know if any of you have gotten sucked into that, but I was pretty...
I haven't heard of that game.
Right? It seems like you can't avoid it. But I didn't want to play it. I played it for like an hour, and it was all buggy, and it crashed a lot, and I was like, I don't get this. And then I had a lot of my friends playing it, and then I picked it up, and then I was like, I get this. And it turns out tons of people on Long Island are playing it. It's just been more fun to go out and actually like do things face-to-face with people for once with gaming. So, I mean, it seems like a pretty positive thing, but that's pretty much been what my week has mostly consisted of. But on the side, I've gotten some Grand Kingdom in. I just picked up Odin Sphere on the Vita. That's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
I picked up Song of the Deep yesterday at GameStop. Figured I'd give that one a try. It's been getting pretty good reviews, and I like Insomniac. And as always, you guys don't know, but I play Battlefield 4 all the time, so I'm always back in on that game.
Wow.
I really love that. Still sticking with me. I love all the dice games. I'm like one of the few people that actually liked Star Wars Battlefront, so...
Well, there's one right here too.
Yeah,
Dumb.
finally.
Oh, yeah, right? I platinumed. It was like it was the best day. I was so happy. But I love that game. I love all of the dice games. I think they're really well made, and I think it's unfair when people criticize them. But that's just me, personally. But
So, Jared, I think you should now refer to Jordan B as the Scourge of Long Island.
Instead of the Pride of Long Island.
Let's get into the news here. The first story is something that people were wondering if it was going to be the case with PlayStation Neo, but Xbox has come out and stated. This is from Eddie over at GameSpot, like we talk about every week. He's the only one that writes stories, I guess, over there. Seems like his name's on every story. Xbox One Scorpio getting trade-in programs from retailers. Microsoft is calling Scorpio the most powerful console ever made. Microsoft is working with retailers to offer trade-in programs for the new, more powerful Project Scorpio. Many retailers, including GameStop, already offer such programs for other systems, allowing you to pick up new hardware for less money. And then they basically talk to Microsoft Sage McCarthy about why they're doing this, and he talks about obviously it's good for gamers, yada yada yada. What do you guys think about this trade-in program for Scorpio? Do you think it's smart?
Yeah, I think this is exactly what Sony needs to do with Neo, and you kind of just have to swallow your pride as a company and kind of get over the fact that you're going to have to work with a third-party retailer in order to secure this deal. But I think it's totally worth it if you really want like a large group of your audience to upgrade.
Especially with these iterations, right? Like, you want to get console gamers who are not familiar with this approach to technology, get used to it, and the best way to do that is to trade in, give them incentives. Maybe later on you don't really offer the trade-in programs, but to get people used to this iteration process, I think it needs a little bit of hand-holding, some training wheels, right?
Especially when it's this early in the generation.
Yeah.
So I remember reading in the article that it said, they were working heavily with, the retailers,
yeah,
the GameStops and Best Buys and everything. So I think these retailers are obviously going to take a big brunt of the cost of these, right?
Yeah.
Of paying people back or however.
Because they want attachment rates. They want those attachment rates up.
Right. So I mean, it's a good idea, and obviously it's great for the consumers. But I just think it's interesting because I remember Microsoft is like famous for doing trade-in. Like if you have a MacBook, you can trade it in like at a Microsoft store for a hefty amount of money if you're putting it towards a Windows laptop. So it would be cool if they did this directly. If you could, send your, go to the Microsoft store, not a GameStop.
Yeah.
Because they're probably going to have the worst buyback, let's be honest.
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah, so good idea, though. Good thing they're doing this.
A couple Christmases ago when we got our Xbox One, we traded in our 360 through Microsoft to get $100 off the Xbox One. And they were actually accepting PS3s as well.
Yeah, so if they accept PS4s for this, that'll be huge too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine? That would be genius.
Yeah, and there's
it's
plenty
kinda-
of PS4s out there. Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
It's kind of like I remember when the PS4 and Xbox One first came out. Pretty much all of the AAA games that were on both consoles had like if you bought them on PS3 or Xbox 360, you could pay a $10 charge and they would give you the upgrade one for free. So I mean, it's definitely not a new thing that they're doing, and I think it should probably be like a 1 month thing, like when the first consoles first come out. If you really want to upgrade, like I mean, that way it also gives some incentive to make the sales and like
at full price. Yeah,
and it won't give people like the advantage of doing that all the time.
Yeah,
I think it should be
I
like
remember
a time
that.
thing.
I remember that because I bought Call of Duty Ghost for like $30 used on PS3, and then popped it in my PS4 and paid the $10 and got a $60 game for like $40. It sucked that I didn't even hardly play it, but yeah.
I think another big thing that you're gonna like, the type of people that they're gonna be catching here is, obviously this will be a limited time offer if they do have this trade-in program. So you have to think, instead of people going, oh well, I've got my Xbox One, it plays all the games, they still look great, I'm not itching to upgrade. But if it's this limited time thing where you can trade in that Xbox One and get, you know, the Xbox big boys, it's known here on our podcast, then you'll get more people upgrading earlier that way.
Yeah, I agree. The next couple stories here are really quick, not too much to talk about. But so the first thing I found over at Reddit, actually on Reddit /r/gaming, where you can find a bunch of really cool stuff. I suggest if you don't keep up with personalities, this is a good place to find out about gaming and stuff happening. I sent this over to the guys. There's a blog, a dev blog for these game developers. It's 2 guys, and they're making this solo adventure game where you play as a cat in this like very futuristic Japanese, like Tokyo-inspired walled city. And it's made by 2 guys in the south of France. They're not accepting donations, and so they're not doing Kickstarter or anything, and they're not having early access. They just want to focus on making the game. I sent the link to you guys before the show. The game looks beautiful in my opinion. Like, what do you guys think? Do you think this has some capabilities, some chances to be a really like cool game?
Some potential.
Yeah.
It looks good graphically. It looks superb. I just need to see more. I guess it's just this cat walking around.
I like how he jumps up on the the pipes though. It looks really cool. It's like a very weird like third person camera, like off to the side, like a little bit off kilter. It looks interesting. That is something cool to check out. So the next story here is actually a follow up on Game Informer to our story we talked about last week with CS:GO Lotto and the whole controversy with T Martin and Pro Syndicate. Mike Futter over at Game Informer writes, Valve to demand gambling sites using Steam login to cease operations. Valve is about to get tough on gambling sites built on tradable Steam items. The company has been facing scrutiny after popular YouTubers were found to violate disclosure rules. In the coming days, Valve will be sending notices to gambling sites that trade in Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, CSGO, skins, and other items. While the company doesn't specify how it will pursue these sites, should a cease and desist not do the job, Valve implies that it will use other means to isolate itself from the gambling operations. So essentially, Valve, like we were talking about last week, I was saying that Valve is actually pretty guilty for this as much as those guys are, for allowing this to happen. And it seems like now that, you know, people are jumping on them, they're like, oh, no, we don't agree with this. So what do you guys think? This is a good call for Valve? Do you think they should have done this before, you know, bad things actually happened? Like, where do you guys stand on this?
It's tough to say. It seems like it's something that's very community driven. I guess maybe it was something like that kind of happened from a good idea of implementing the skins, because I was definitely addicted to buying those skins. They're fun to get and everything like that. I guess the community itself kind of made it a malicious kind of activity. So I don't necessarily put all the blame on Valve. I think they were just lazy with keeping track of what was happening, and now it's kind of bitten them in the butt. But I think as long as they kind of take the problem head on, I don't think it's a super big deal. I think it's more of a big deal what the YouTubers were doing to their fan bases and the community itself. I think Valve was just kind of lazy about it. Yeah.
Sloppy bookkeeping, essentially. And it's good that they're actually being proactive about it now. They could have easily just done nothing about it, but so not too much to say about that. The next story here came as a surprise to me, being somebody who owns an Xbox and leans more Microsoft than Sony, but actually like both quite a bit. This comes by way of Game Informer as well, Mike as well. 2 stories back to back here. Microsoft will not hold Gamescom press briefing. Last year, Sony bowed out of Gamescom press conference in favor of Paris Games Week. This year, Microsoft is following suit, leaving behind a staple, the biggest trade leaving behind the staple of the biggest trade event in Europe. Microsoft will still have a presence at the show, but will be shifting its focus towards fans instead of talking to the media. The company has announced plans for a fan fest similar to what it holds at E3. There are no details yet, but the public-facing event will be held during Gamescom. If you're attending the show in Cologne, Microsoft will have a booth in Hall 8. There you can check out what they have, including Gears of War 4, Forza 3, Halo Wars 2, ReCore, and the list goes on and on. Gamescom will take place on August 17th. So what do you guys think about Xbox not having a presence at Gamescom? Is this weird?
More room for Nintendo and the NX.
Yeah, true.
I feel like, obviously, Gamescom isn't going off a cliff or anything like that, but it is kind of odd that Sony drops out 1 year. Sony more because they were basically just switching their Gamescom preference to Paris Games Week, but I'm wondering if Microsoft is going to have something to substitute there.
Well, I think so. Gamescom is a lot more public-friendly conference. Obviously, it's a lot easier to get in. It's public, so people are able to walk in. So I think that maybe these companies are understanding that you don't need the press conference there. People will just go to play your games. Like, you have people, not media, not these people that are going to write a story about your game. You have people, normal, everyday people that just want to play your games. And I think that they're noticing that maybe a conference is for E3, is for the Paris Games Week, is for the PSX if you have your own event, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I think that they see that Gamescom is a public event, so they want to be more fan-facing as opposed to media-facing. So
they also just might not have things to show necessarily. I feel like they've kind of put all of their chips on the table already for the upcoming holidays and the first and second quarter of spring. So they could also just be that maybe they just don't have any new trailers or anything to show. They just want their developers to work on the games instead of making these trailers that they can show off to the public, because I guess we pretty much know what they're coming out with during the holidays now. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. I mean, I know Sony hosts PSX near the Game Awards, so I mean, it's all weird like that.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Dom?
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it too. Is there's just nothing. They kind of blew their load already, so to speak.
Yeah. I would love if they came out and had a conference where they had 5 or 6 teaser trailers for games that don't come out in 2 years.
Yeah, that's the dream.
What?
I'm making fun of PlayStation. It was a PlayStation
Kojima.
Show.
Okay. Hey, yeah, Death Stranding's coming out this fall, dude.
Did you see the amount of people that pre-ordered that game? It's insane to me. I'm like, you realize you're not getting that game for a long time, right?
Yeah,
you just made a donation.
Game.
Yeah, exactly. You funded their Kickstarter. The last item here comes from by way of The Verge, but it's all over the internet. By Andrew over at The Verge. Nintendo is releasing a miniature NES with 30 built-in games. It's coming out in November, $60. If you've seen an NES before, it's essentially the same thing except like a mini version. It's like the size of a Lunchable. Shout out to Lunchables. So he writes here, Nintendo is bringing back the NES, only a little smaller. Today the company announced that what it's calling the Nintendo Entertainment System NES Classic Edition. Jesus, is that a Square Enix title? It just looks like an NES, only a lot tinier. Has ports on the front. It comes with a controller. You can also buy a secondary controller for $10. And I'm going to give you guys the list of games. It's also going to have HDMI support. So right here, the list is as follows. Let me scroll down and find it. Here we go. So we have Balloon Fight, Bubble Bobble, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, Donkey Kong Jr., Double Dragon 2, Dr. Mario, Excite Bike, Final Fantasy, Galaga, Ghost and Goblins, Gradius, Ice Climber, Kid Icarus, Kirby's Adventure, Mario Brothers, Mega Man 2, Metroid, Ninja Gaiden, Pac-Man, Punch-Out, Star Tropics, Super C, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, Tecmo Bowl, The Legend of Zelda, and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I think it's a deal. If you mark those games at $2 a piece, you're making your money back, I think there's a lot of fantastic games on this list. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys feel? Is this value? Is this weird that's coming out at this time? I mean,
it's very weird. It's a very Nintendo thing to just one day at 7 a.m. Eastern time to announce via Twitter. First of all, I don't know. It's cool. It's a cool little thing that I could see people taking to places, right? Like, it's something you can just plug in really quick and play a couple games or whatever.
Yeah.
But it still harps back to that age-old question of why can't they just make the entire NES and SNES libraries available for eShop purchase, completely across the board. I mean, even throw them on the other consoles too. I don't know. That would be where they could really make money if that's what they're interested in.
They know nostalgia sells, though, so they're like, we'll just make a mini NES. Look how crazy people went over the PlayStation, the classic throwback Remember the PlayStation 4?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like people love nostalgia. So I think it's weird for me to make it smaller and compact. You guys know what I'm talking about. The very cheap like game things you can buy like at a flea market that are like $15 and you plug it in and it has like Snake and like a bunch of like rip off like
there's 10,000 games on it.
Yeah, that's what this gives me the vibes of. Obviously all the games in there are fantastic, but I don't really like the packaging they're using. It's a weird gripe, but like
Europe's packaging for this looks way better than America's.
Yeah, ours looks very tacky, and like Nintendo's usually really good at their packaging. I like the packaging they use. It's usually very clean, very colorful. But like it's very tacky. It looks like
I thought it looked cool. It was kind of like retro looking.
I didn't like it, me personally, but do you guys think it's $60 is a steal? You think it's a pretty
I do. I'm super hype on this. I think there's going to be so many gamers buying this just because. You get 30 games. You get this little NES console. I think it's dumb that it can't play NES cartridges. I think that's kind of weird, but other than that, I think it's really pretty cool. And for the price, you're getting some sweet game in action.
Yeah. Jordan B, does this... there's been rumors that the NX is supposedly a digital-only console, which they've kind of refuted. But now that they're doing this kind of console where all these games are digital on it, do you think that, Nintendo's leaning more towards a digital focus? They'll obviously have physical games, but do you think they're learning that, the way of the future is digital?
Yeah, I think they're experimenting a lot at this point. It seems like Pokemon Go and their whole going into the mobile market seems like a giant experiment to see where they should go next. I think with Iwata's unfortunate passing, I think the company is definitely having a new restructure with the new president, and they're going to try a lot of different things. I also think that this NES console is being released in big part because of the fact that they don't have a super big lineup. I was doing some research while you were talking about it, and I'm not really seeing anything in regard to the Wii U that looks super interesting. They have a few big 3DS titles, but I definitely feel like this seems like a interesting holiday product that could definitely like aim more towards the general audience that grew up with the NES. So a lot of adults will probably pick it up for their kids and stuff. They don't have a lot of big games, so this is definitely a way to drive revenue and things like that.
That's a really good point because they have a huge gap.
Yeah,
exactly. This whole year has just been barren for them. So yeah, they need something to bring in some revenue during this time while we wait for NX.
Also, who knows if this wasn't supposed to come out earlier in the year, but because they had to push NX, they pushed this too. So instead of this coming out earlier in the year, maybe when they push NX, they're like, well, we can hold that for release. When they're thinking about their plans for the rest of the year at the beginning of the year. Obviously, we don't know.
Just tweet about it.
Yeah, to your point, you were saying if they're going all digital, I think they might be. I can't really say for sure because I really can never read that company because I feel like they're so out there.
Yeah.
Exactly, as opposed to Sony and Microsoft. I mean, I think we're headed to an all digital future. Unfortunately, I like my physical copies, but I have a Steam library of over like 300 games, so I'm definitely adept to going all digital. It won't be a super bad thing, but I'd rather stay physical. But I think Nintendo, I could definitely go all digital with their new console. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It almost seems like Nintendo listens to as many gaming podcasts as they possibly can, and then as soon as someone says, I hope Nintendo does this, they're like, yeah, we're definitely not doing that. Just do the exact opposite of what they just said.
Yeah. Also, going to your point of like why people buy this, I think a lot of people we're growing up in an age now where a lot of people who grew up as gamers are having kids, right? And like actually playing like solid video games. I think that this is a way of them like how would I say this? So like we grew up with our parents owning, if your parents did play video games, owning the classic systems. A lot of kids now, their parents were that second generation where we started playing video games. So I think it's harder for them to be like, hey dad, can I play your NES? Because a lot of us don't really own NESs and stuff like that. So this is a way of like, I was able to play this as a kid. It's hard to scramble up everything because cartridges can get expensive or rare. This is a way to get all the games I want you to play to get introduced to video games in a single box, It has a lot of staples, has a lot of really good games, so...
it definitely covers those parents that always talk about, should I start my kid on the latest gen or make him go back to like the 8-bit? It's like, if you want to do the 8-bit thing, the 8-bit education, as they call it, you can just put your kid in front of one of these machines and they got 30 awesome games to go through.